Ladies and gentlemen, we are leaving West Virginia. I regret coming to the state. It's my fault. I didn't do proper research, and I didn't think I would have had to have done research in this field. But, look, let me put it this way. First, I want to apologize to my friends in West Virginia who work in governance, who are desperately trying to find some way to rectify the issues the state has. And unfortunately, I will tell you, the fact that it has come to me discussing this in the first place means that we are well past this. West Virginia's tax laws are psychotic. They require itemization of all objects you own, including your chairs and pens, and it's just ridiculous. And I can say this, if I am wrong about any of this, then it's actually easier than all of that. We're being harassed by the state, so I'm leaving. And so I've had a lot of conversations with people who work in local government, because of course we're friends with some of these people, and I've informed them every step of the way, I will never will there be a time where Tim Pool makes a phone call to the government and says, I, Tim Pool, want you to do a favor for me. Never going to happen. I won't go to a building and demand special treatment. I won't try and enter a club and be like, I'm Tim, never going to do it. And so as we've encountered these ridiculous business regulations and hurdles, I have largely just said, well, it's the nature of business. And I've been like, well, I don't like that. I don't like this. We've come to a crux, however, in that I have recently discovered that in 2021, West Virginia effectively banned individual contracting. I am so deeply offended by that move. I regret ever coming to this state and putting any money into it. It is on par with, we have this here from Investopedia, what California did with AB 5, and it's why we largely do not work with anyone based in California. Very few things motivate me to such rage, and this is one of them. This has to do with the gig economy, and West Virginia followed California in basically saying that if you are an individual who wants to do work in any capacity, you must register as a business first or be an employee, taking away the rights of individuals to choose when and how they work. And I am shocked and offended that West Virginia put this law in place in June of 2021, right before we started our expansion. So had I done my proper research, I would have easily seen that West Virginia was banning contracting, and I would have said we will never go near this state. And so we've run into this because we have talent contracts. And there's reasons why we have contractors versus employees. There's a difference. Due to the nature of contract law, there are certain legal requirements we have with employees pertaining to intellectual property and disclosure and things like this. And it's nothing to do with there's a lot of people out there who are they think NDAs, non-disparagements, and non-disclosures are because companies have secrets. Yes, sir, sometimes. For us, it's because we have movie ideas. It's because we have songs that have not been released. It's because we have technological advancements and plans for a media company. And with that, employees are held to a different standard than contractors. Why? Certain contractors already work for other companies, but we want to share talent. Certain contractors have a list of personal intellectual property that we would never negotiate ownership of, creating a distinction between when someone's a contractor and someone's an employee. Well, we are getting heat from the state because we have people who drafted a report on I'm not going to get into too much nitty gritty on this, but we've been butting heads with the state because, for instance, a single individual who doesn't own a business said, I can help you draft a report on X. And we were like, that would actually be really helpful for us expanding our business. And the state came down and said, how dare you contract an individual? And we were confused. We were like, what do you mean? It's an individual who lives in West Virginia who offered to do some work over the weekend for us to literally just draft a report on a certain issue. And they said, that's not allowed in this state. That's illegal. And we were like, what? And so we began looking into this, and sure enough, that's West Virginia's new law, the Employment Law Worker Classification Act, which uses the excuse of Uber and other BS to create absolutely psychotic provisions as to what constitutes an employee or a contractor, which restricts our ability to do work with top talent. So if I go to a famous individual and say, we want to contract you for a series of shows or whatever, can't do it. Because they're going to be an employee so long as we require locations. I'll put it this way. Timcast IRL can't have contracted talent because online conversations can be hosted from a remote location. And if we require them to be in the studio, that's an employment restriction. And now they're employees. But if they're employees, we're required to give them our company policy employee contract, which creates ownership of IP. It is an absolute disaster. And so I can show you some of these stupid garbage that's in this thing. The form that was sent to us from the government. Check this out. How to determine whether or not someone's an employee or a contractor. If a worker has the right to quit at any time without incurring liability, this indicates an employer-employee relationship. Well, we have a company policy with HR requirements. We cannot have policies that are not uniform. So if we apply it to one employee, it has to apply to all. So if we hire an employee for creative work and say that if you produce a creative work, we own the rights to that. That's what we've hired you for. That would have to apply to anyone who falls under this criteria. So we have independent contractors. We say, hey, we want you to only do one specific thing because we don't want to buy out the rest of your IP or anything related to the work you do. Can't do it. Because if the individual has a right to leave at any moment, they're now an employee, and we must implement our uniform employee policy on everyone, making it impossible to work in the state. And don't get me wrong, it's not just West Virginia, it's also California and a bunch of other states that are doing this. The reason why this makes me so angry is because while the law may be constructed in such a way that says something like, no, it's only if certain criteria within this are met. There's ways around it. Simply set a term. If you want to contract someone, set a timeline. Okay, so now I have to have everyone under term contracts. Congratulations to all Timcast contractors. You are now not allowed to work for anyone else for this amount of time. We don't do that. Well, they're requiring us to do that, and I refuse. I believe these moves that are passing in California and West Virginia and a bunch of other states are intended to push forward the you will live in the pod and you will eat the bugs world, where guess what? If you are a man or a woman, whatever, if you're a person and you live in your house and in your spare time you build a birdhouses, and eventually some guy notices it and says, hey, would you like to build some birdhouses for me, for my company? Can't do it. Either they're employees or they're contractors, because the work has to fall under rigid guidelines. In West Virginia, one of those is an individual who wants to do work must be a registered business entity. That's right. The state has personally informed us that if you are an individual in West Virginia, you have no right to contract your work. Period. You have to form a business. You have to get a license to do it. You have to ask the state permission to be able to mow someone's lawn. Now, I've had phone calls from a ton of people being like, please, Tim, don't do this. It's embarrassing for the state. And I apologize because I know the state was largely run by Democrats for a long time. And just recently, we've had a change of the administration, but it's going to take them years to sort this stuff out. And they are trying to place enforcement action against us, telling us we are not allowed to contract people. So we've already had to go through our entire list and be like, guys, Maryland didn't make us do this. We didn't even realize this was a law. And that's our fault. So we're going to have to pay the penalties and pay what we have to pay. But from this point forward, if you want to do any work with us, you must be a corporation registered in West Virginia with a license. Come back to us when you have it. And if you operate outside of the state, same thing applies. This is absolutely offensive. So let me tell you about what happened with California with what their AB5 bill is. Vox.com, they had a website called SB Nation. California said because of the gig economy and the exploitation of contractor work, we're passing a law that says after a certain amount of gigs, you're officially an employee. So what happened? A bunch of people, how freelance writing works. Somebody will write an article and then they'll send it to some people they know in media and say, hey, would you want to buy this article? I just wrote it. A company will then be like, yeah, we'll give you $100 for it. What happened after AB5 passed is that all these media companies terminated all of their freelance contractors. But understand what this means. This means that people in California who of their own volition produce an artistic work are now barred from selling it to media companies because the state has put a restriction on those companies saying, if you purchase a certain amount of these products, you must employ the individual. That means the individual doesn't have the choice to be an independent contractor anymore. They are required now to be an employee of someone else's company. Maybe they don't want to be. Maybe they're like, I don't want to work for that guy. I do my own work in my own house on my own laptop, and then I choose who I sell to. No. And then when you become an employee of another company, they're going to have corporate policies saying you can't work for anybody else. And that effectively ends the careers of individuals. What this is, California, West Virginia, and again, many other states, they are moving to ban the right of individuals to do work for money. And it is one of the most offensive things imaginable to me. And for this, this is the straw on the camel's back. There's a lot of other problems that I can deal with. We wanted to make West Virginia great, but this one is offensive to me and my moral framework. This is, you will live in the pot and eat the bugs. You will work for Walmart, not the mom and pop shop. Because who has the ability to navigate these laws? Massive multinational corporations. That is the world they're trying to build. So I'm done. They say in this, AB5 was designed to regulate companies hiring gig workers. So what? If I use an app to communicate and decide I want to drive today and pick someone up and drop them off, I'm not an employee of Uber. Simply because technology has changed, they have now taken away your right to be an individual who wants to do work. So let me break it down. If I want some local and I said, hey, I got some weeds growing by my house. You want to take care of them for me? The law in West Virginia puts the liability on me personally as the hiring individual to check that this person has a registered business and license to operate in West Virginia. Not interested. That's my rant on that. That's why we're leaving. And I don't know. A bunch of states are adopting this. It's insane. When we operated out of Maryland, this never was an issue. And the fact that West Virginia is choosing to take enforcement action against us offends me. It is disrespectful. And, I got to be honest, this is largely why I think it's been impossible to get the anti-Times Square thing moving. Nobody will open businesses in this state, and I think it's their own fault. And we are now intent on divesting as quickly as humanly possible. So I know that there are people in the legislature, they've been trying to talk to me. I know someone tweeted the government was trying to reach out to me. Look, with respect, that should not be the case. That a small business in the state is now barred from hiring a contractor unless, and get this, it's going to cost you $300 to go through the registration too. If you want to mow someone's lawn, spend the $300 to register with the state first because they've taken away your right to do work. It's insane. And it should not be the case that because I have a large show and some sort of influence that I get special access to government. And I told them this, I will never ask for a favor. If this is how you run your state, I will not be here and I will not do business here. And the reality is a lot of states do business like this. It is corrupt, it is evil, and I won't stand for it. I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in on that one before we go to Super Chats.
F them.
You're screwing us, West Virginia governance. I admire that you're unwilling to accept help from the government, accept special treatment, rather. Like, that's an admirable thing. Because many people in your shoes would be talking to the governor or talking to the congressman, all of the local, all of them would love to be on your good side. So they're politically interested, obviously, in scratching your back.
This is normal. It is normal for an 8-figure company with several dozen employees to contact local governance and say, give me special treatment. That's what they all do. I despise that our government is built of this, but maybe I'm just naive. Maybe this is the way it has always been and always will be, because how else could it be? You run a business, you build up to a certain size. The state wants your tax revenue. They want you to move people here. They want you to, in our instance, proselytize the greatness of West Virginia. And my option is, okay, I will publicly claim we are happy with the state's laws and regulations and encourage other people to come here because you've given me a favor. I won't do that. So I told them, I with respect, I appreciate they're trying to help, but I am offended at how the state runs itself. They can choose not to enforce these things for the time being and call a special legislative session to abolish these ridiculous and psychotic draconian laws that strip the rights away from working class people. But I'm not going to take a favor from them, nor am I going to go on my show or go on X and be like, everything's great. What a great place to be. Nah, look, we've run into roadblocks and hurdles with regulation in the state already. Their tax laws are psychotic. Everyone complains about it. They require you to itemize literally everything you have. And I was talking to our accountant. I'm like, our chairs, like a folding chair that costs $10? Yep. It's got to be listed, itemized. You got to pay taxes on it. I got to pay property tax on a folding chair? Yes, you do. And I was like, man, that's ridiculous. But okay, like, I understand. I tolerate that. I don't tolerate this. This is 2030 agenda garbage that says because technology advanced and we must get access to your tax revenue. Let me put it this way. The real reason they say for these bills in California and West Virginia is because Uber is misclassifying employees. Wrong. It's because they want payroll taxes and they don't want to lose revenue. But if that were really the case, then they would simply go after people who don't pay their taxes. If someone comes to me and says, I can draw you a beautiful picture of a chicken, and I say, I would like to hire you to draw that chicken picture, they have to be a registered business entity. And there's a bunch of other restrictions pertaining to whether they're a contractor or they're an employee. And one of them is like, If they can, here's another one. Here's a big one. If we contract someone, they have the legal right to hire someone else to do that job. So if I contract someone who's talented to do hosting on IRL, they have a legal right to send a random person I don't know to do the job. That's what the law. That's what they sent us. That's what it says. And I'm like, well, that can't be the case. And they're like, well, then if you have a singular individual who appears on a regular scheduling basis, they must be under employment law. And your company policies, as per how employment works, have to be uniform. And I'm just like, okay, so we're shutting the company down. F you. It's not happening. Like, we're leaving. That's the only thing we can do. And so there's temporary stopgap measures, but it's insane that they're doing this. I believe this is largely attached to the you will live in the pod and eat the bugs. I believe it largely flies under the radar because West Virginia implementing these laws doesn't really affect anybody of consequence to generate something like this news until us. California did this, and it created a huge media splash because it resulted in like 300 people got fired from Vox or something like this. Hundreds of people lost their writing jobs. That made big news when journalists lost their job and tweeted up a storm saying, I just got fired because of this law, which was a bit ironic considering this was pushed by unions and Democrats in the state. We're not seeing the news on all of the states that are implementing bans on individual contracting because most people just, it doesn't hit the news the same way like a burning building does. But what's going to happen in 10 years? Kids are going to grow up and be like, what do you mean? It's normal to not be allowed to work. The only way you can get a job is if a company offers you employment. This is the way it's always been.
Yep.
It should be that I can walk up to a lot and say, hey, I'll give you $5 to do a thing for me. Just make sure you pay your taxes. Not anymore. They're banning that all over the country. Our lawyer was telling us like, hey, these laws are popping up everywhere. They are outright making it so that if you are an individual, you can't work. Mm-hmm. You have to be the employee of Walmart. You want to open a mom and pop shop? Good luck. We banned those during COVID, but Walmart got special provisions. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.